Good afternoon. It's a great honor to be here today. My name is Jenkins, and I'm here to share a personal story with you. It's called Passion, Empowerment, and Social Media. Okay, passion. Passion is something that's really ingrained in the things that I do in my life, in my personal life, in my work. It's something that drives me forward. It wasn't always that way. Before I had passion as my main driving force, I was just angry. When I was 12 years old, my parents separated, and well, these days separations and divorces are pretty commonplace, but growing up in Malaysia in the 80s, it was just unheard of. And I was very ashamed. And that shame turned into anger. I remember I was at school and I didn't want to tell anyone that my parents were separated. And this anger just built up in me, this still anger inside of me. And it drove me forward. I really felt that I had to prove something to the world to show that I could become someone, even though I come from a broken home. And so I just went on. This anger pushed me forward, got me through school, good grades, pushed me through university. And after university, I got a job at a bank. Now, at the time, I had not a very good idea of what banking was all about, but hey, it was great to show that I was going places. And it was my ticket into the corporate world. So I joined the bank. I rose through ranks rather quickly, went through corporate banking, investment banking, asset management. I was earning a really good deal of money. And yeah, I created this aura of success around me. But this success felt empty. And it wasn't that I was miserable, but I wasn't really very happy either. So in 2007, the bank I worked for got taken over, and new management came in. And so I was like, well, okay, what do I do now? It was a very stressful period in my life, and I felt that I was on the verge of a burnout. So after a while, I decided, well, let's just take a break and move on. So I left the bank and decided to focus on doing something I really enjoy doing, and that was travel and writing about it. I've been traveling ever since I was a kid, and writing about it as well. I've always kept a travel journal from when I was about 8 years old. So I went traveling. I bought myself a round-the-world ticket. The plan was to travel for about 5-6 months, and then come back. At the time, headhunters were coming and saying, hey, we've got a job offer for you here, job offer for you there. And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. No worries. I'll just go traveling around the world, come back, grab the first job, and then I'll be back in banking again. No worries. So there I went, and I was traveling. Halfway through my trip, something happened. I remember this moment very vividly. I was out snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, and I'd just come back to the mainland, and I walked past this newsstand, and there was this headlines in the newspapers: Lehman Brothers collapsed. I was like, oh dear God, that is not good. And the implications of that were massive around the world, and at the time for me, I thought, well, you know, this could have a big impact on me as well. Maybe my future in banking was over. So there was nothing else I could do about it, so, you know, well, I just moved on. You're on this great trip right now, focus on that, enjoy it. So, but I couldn't help thinking about it, though. So it was like the next few days, I was walking on this beach, Whitehaven Beach in Queensland, Australia, and I was thinking about what had powered me through my career, through school, university, through the bank. And I was thinking was really anger. It was anger that was pushing me forward just to try and prove something to the world. Or what was I trying to prove? Did that make me happy? And I realized that I perhaps might need a change. And then I thought about this chat I had with this Frenchman earlier that day. And he was an aerospace engineer. And he was basically in the same boat as me. He was in the corporate world. Yeah, I was an engineer. But he was on the verge of a burnout and decided to take a sabbatical, and he went to Australia. And when he was there, he decided, you know, I really love to dive. So he quit his job, and he became a dive instructor. He started his own diving school. And that was the clue I needed. This guy followed his heart. And I thought, well, that's exactly what I need. I need to change something in my life. And I needed to replace this anger-charged drive within me with a drive fueled by passion, something that came from my heart. And I was so thrilled with this insight. And it may be a simple thought, but it was a really big breakthrough for me. And so this new breakthrough gave me this confidence. It was a huge confidence boost. And then I decided, well, on my travels, while I'm doing all these things, I'm really enjoying it. I'm traveling, having the time of my life. I'm writing about it. And I decided to challenge myself with different things. So one of the things that I did was to challenge different fears that I have. So there was once I was out zip lining in the Andes. It was something that I would not think about twice. But I thought, I'm on this world trip. I'm here to challenge myself and to learn a lot more about myself. So I went up on that platform, 30 meters above the ground, and I could hear all these little voices in my head going, oh, don't do that. And they thought, oh yeah, jump off. No, don't do that. Are you mad? And I was like, and then I jumped off this platform, 30 meters above the ground. I went zipping right up to the other end, and I felt this massive wave of exhilaration engulfing me. And I was like, this is so cool. I want to do this again. And it was then that I got my second insight. It's fear. It's funny how fear has us in its grip in so many ways. But when we just let go of it for one moment, and explore and dive into the unknown, and all of a sudden we realize how silly we were to harbor that fear in the first place. So it was this insight combined with my other insight of I have to be fueled by passion in what I do. This combination was so powerful, and little did I know then that it would change my life forever. This is me standing at the edge of the Iguazu Falls towards the end of my world trip. And I look at this photo often because it has a lot of symbolism for me. It exemplifies the immense joy I felt standing there. I was so excited. I felt so confident. Yeah, my future was, what was my future? I don't know. But I knew I had my future in my own two hands. When I go back home, would there be a job? I have no idea. What was I going to do? But I felt so confident, and I felt, if I only followed my heart and listened to my instincts, that my future would be rewarding, it would be spectacular, like that little rainbow below at the foot of the falls. So I went back to Amsterdam, went back home, and I couldn't have chosen a worse moment. I went back in the winter. It was cold, it was rainy, it was dark, and there were no jobs, and I spoke to headhunters and said, sorry, Keith, there are no jobs. So I'm like, oh dear, okay. So I was depressed within a month, from being that high, such confidence after my world trip, because that's what travel does to you. It makes you a very confident person. And then you get back home and I was like, oh dear. So that wasn't good. I decided I need to go back to the basics. I need to do something. I needed to organize my thoughts and ideas. So what I did was I pulled out this blank sheet of paper and I drew a mind map. And on this mind map, I depicted my past, my present, and what my future ought to look like. And I asked myself 5 questions. What are my passions? What am I good at? What was the other question again? My passions, what am I good at? Do I want to be employed? How much money do I need to make myself feel comfortable? And what should I do, really? I made lists to all these different questions. And then I came up with what I was already doing. I was traveling, I was writing about it, and it made me a really happy, content person. So I decided to start up my blog, the Velvet Escape travel blog. So at the time, I had no idea where this journey was going to take me, this blogging journey. It was a great new adventure for me. All I knew was that if I just did it with my heart and soul poured into it, people will take notice at a certain point, and it will be rewarding, and perhaps I could build something out of it. So there I went, started my blog, and my friends and family were reading my blog. I had about 10, 15 readers, and they were leaving comments on my blog, saying, "Ah, this is going good." And then one fine day, this little bluebird shows up. And I can safely say right now that if there was no Twitter, I wouldn't be standing here today. I remember my first forays into Twitter very vividly. It was like shouting, "Hello, hello," out into this big dark cave, and no one would respond. And I was like, what am I doing here? And so I just continued doing this. I mean, I had a lot of time on my hands. So, so I went and I continued tweeting, and I was sharing travel tips and ideas. And then I got to meet a lot of like-minded people who are passionate about travel, and people who had blogs. I got to meet travel editors, and all sorts of people, or just normal people who was just interested in travel. And we got interacting with one another. We were sharing travel tips and all that. And it was like, wow, this is very, very cool. All these people are so passionate about what they do. So I quickly realized that social media has got a lot of virtues. It's a great platform to share information, to interact with one another. And for me, as a blogger, it was great because I could interact most often in real time with my readers. And I could network, and I could market my blog. And there are so many things I could do with it. And I could also have a lot of fun doing it. And so I continued to use social media. I started out with Twitter, got onto Facebook, and then at a certain point I thought, hey, I could make this blogging thing into a business. At the time, there weren't any. There were maybe a few case studies of how travel bloggers had turned their blogs into a business, but it didn't really. It was not something that really attracted me. The way that they were doing it, and I wanted to do it differently. And so I turned to my social networks. I became blogging buddies with a few other people who also shared the same interest. They also had travel blogs, and they also wanted to turn their travel blogs into a business. So we just formed a group, a community, and we brainstormed. We shared ideas and tips. We coached each other. And that's how we came up with all these different ideas of how to turn our travel blogs into a business. So after a while, traffic to my blog picked up, actually in leaps and bounds. It was growing rather rapidly because of social media. It gave me a global audience. And there were people from all corners of the world visiting my blog and leaving comments. And I was interacting with them via Facebook and Twitter, and we're sharing information about travel and about destinations. And it just grew from there. I was at a certain point, companies started to approach me who discovered my blog, were following my blog via Twitter and Facebook and on my blog as well. And they were offering me all sorts of business opportunities like sponsoring and advertising. And so that's how it grew from there. And what happened after that was basically that I used social media as a tool to market my blog. I created a business plan, and I identified revenue sources or possible income streams. I created marketing strategies, and I also had a part of my business plan that was focused on how I intended to use social media for my blog, for marketing purposes, for networking, etc. And I created this business plan. And it was all based on the information and research and interaction I had on social media. So social media, used constructively, really helped me out a lot. It set me up, it connected me with like-minded people. It gave me an outlet to express myself. It connected me with a global audience. And here I am today. So thank you, Twitter, little blue bird. Yeah, so if there was one thing that my world trip had taught me, It was to follow my heart and to listen to my instincts. And social media gave me the platform to pursue my dream and to build a business out of something that came right from my heart. As for success and happiness, I'm a much happier person these days. And success was always something that I thought, something I saw as, how people perceive me to be. These days, I'm enjoying a different brand of success, a kind of success that comes from within. Thank you very much.